The video of my boyfriend proposing to his secretary went viral, and everyone was calling it romantic and touching. The secretary even posted a confession saying, "Finally waited for you, luckily I didn't give up. Mr. James, please take care of me for the rest of my life." The comment section was shouting, "So cute, the female secretary and the domineering CEO, my OTP is the sweetest." I didn't cry or make a scene, quietly closed the page, and asked my boyfriend for an explanation. Then I overheard his conversation with a friend, "I have no choice. If I don't marry her, her family will force her to marry someone she doesn't love. What about Summer? She's your official girlfriend. Aren't you afraid she'll get angry? What can anger do? Summer has been with me for 7 years, she can't leave me." Later, he and I got married on the same day. The wedding cars passed by each other, and when the brides exchanged bouquets, he completely lost it upon seeing me in the car opposite. "Mom, I agreed to the family's arranged marriage." In the dim living room, my clear voice sounded lonely and numb. Mom was very surprised to hear I agreed to the arranged marriage. "Weren't you unwilling before? Why did you suddenly agree?" "Summer, marriage is not a game. Whether it's arranged or not doesn't matter, I just want you to be happy. You need to think it through and not be impulsive." Listening to my mom's words, I couldn't help but feel a sting in my eyes. "Mom, I've made up my mind. You can start preparing the wedding." Mom knew I was upset, was silent for a moment, then comforted me. "You've been with James for so long, yet he refuses to make your relationship public and is reluctant to meet the family. Your dad and I just knew you two wouldn't last." Mom's words felt like a thorn piercing my heart. It turned out that outsiders saw things so clearly, and the only one confused was me. "This guy from the Liu family was an arranged match your dad and I picked out for you early on. When your parents vouch for someone, not to mention anything else, their character and family background are definitely top-notch. My Summer deserves the best." I took a deep breath and said, "Thank you, Mom. I trust the judgment of you and Dad." My mom continued, "So, do you want us to arrange for you to meet each other in the next couple of days?" "No need, just go ahead and prepare the wedding." After hanging up, James appeared behind me at some unknown time, holding a small cake in his hand, and asked me confusedly, "What wedding? Who's getting married?" "Mine, it's mine who is getting married." I silently answered him in my heart, but the words never came out of my mouth. I shook my head calmly, "Nothing, just a friend." As soon as I said it, I noticed his expression visibly relaxed. A bittersweet feeling welled up in my heart again. Just now, he was so nervous. Could it be that he thought I was pressuring him to marry, or was it that he was going to marry his good secretary Cynthia and thought I had found out? "I brought you your favorite cake from that place. Do you want to eat it now?" In the past, whenever James came home from work, he would always casually bring me something delicious. Even if many of them didn't suit my taste, I still felt as sweet as if I were soaking in a honey jar. It was simply because I felt that being constantly remembered and cared for by the one I loved far outweighed the taste of the food itself. But now, looking at this box of cake, I felt incredibly ironic. Just a moment ago, I saw Cynthia change her Facebook from private to public. After scrolling through just a few posts, I couldn't bear to look any further. At this moment, I finally realized how ridiculous I am. It turns out this cake is Cynthia's favorite. Not just this cake, but also those nuts and snacks are all Cynthia's favorites. What's even more pathetic is that I discovered the habit of James bringing me food after work only started after Cynthia joined the company. "So, James, when you were feeding me, who did you think I was? Summer or Cynthia?" I swallowed the bitterness and said softly, "I don't like sweets, they're too cloying. Please don't buy them for me anymore." James didn't expect me to react this way, his eyes showing a hint of surprise. "How come? I haven't seen you not eat before. We've been together for so many years, if he really cared about me, how could he not notice my food preferences?" Some words repeated many times become tiring, and eventually turn into compromise. I didn't argue anymore, just casually said, "My taste has changed recently." For several days in a row, James seemed very busy, so busy that he even forgot my birthday. However, I no longer cared. But he suddenly seemed to remember, and to make it up to me, he bought tickets to my favorite musical. This show was very popular and tickets were hard to get. I couldn't buy one myself, so when James said he had tickets and invited me to go, I agreed. But on the day of the show, I didn't see him. Instead, I saw Cynthia showing off 2 tickets on Facebook. It's nice to have someone who is always there to go crazy with you when you're bored watching a concert. Although his face wasn't shown, I immediately recognized the scarred hand in the photo as James's. The scar on his hand was left from when he saved me years ago. Suddenly, I felt like a clown. While I was standing outside in the rain, worried that something might have happened to him, he was inside the VIP seats with his secretary watching the concert. The cold rain hit my face, and my heart and body gradually grew cold. At this moment, Mom sent me a message saying the wedding was set for 2 weeks later. If I felt the timing was too rushed, I could postpone it. I shook my head, no need, just like this. The heavy rain paralyzed the city's traffic, and I waited a long time without getting a ride. James's call came late. Why aren't you at home? My voice was calm without a trace of emotion. I'm at the People's Theater. He seemed to suddenly remember something and was silent for a moment. Sorry, I was held up this afternoon. Wait for me, I'll come pick you up. I didn't refuse, but I also knew he wouldn't come. Sure enough, the next second, Cynthia updated her status again. Afraid I'd catch a cold from the rain, the CEO husband personally made ginger soup. A man who cooks is the most handsome. I want to marry him. The picture shows James busy at the stove from behind. I glanced at it once, then calmly exited the page. This heavy rain inevitably caused me to catch a cold and fever. Using not wanting to infect James as an excuse, I moved to the guest room. James unusually put down his work to take care of me at home. But I wasn't used to it, saying, "It's just a small cold, I'm an adult and can take care of myself. You should go focus on your work." He stared at me strangely for a while. Weren't you the one who always wanted me to stay with you when you were sick? Why are you acting so differently today? I lowered my head, hiding all the emotions in my eyes, and forced a smile. I was immature before, but not anymore. James looked at me with concern. Summer, are you okay? I'm fine, you should go quickly. He always felt something was off about me but couldn't pinpoint what it was. In the end, he could only stare at me deeply and sigh. Then you rest well, call me if anything happens. After he left, I let out a long breath, lay down, and slept again. When I woke up, I saw that my mom had sent me the detailed wedding plan again. She even sent me more than a dozen wedding dresses at once, letting me choose. I casually swiped through them, clicking on the large images and jumping with excitement, so much so that I didn't even notice when James suddenly appeared. He snatched my phone away and threw it aside, frowning displeased. Why are you looking at wedding dresses? I thought he had found out about my plan to get married and was about to clarify everything. But what he said next made me realize how ridiculous my thoughts were. Summer, are you trying to pressure me into marriage? I told you I would marry you. You don't need to use tricks like this to hint at me, it just makes you look bad. You misunderstood, I am not. But he waved his hand, not listening to my explanation. I have something to do, I'm leaving first. I advise you to stop doing these things that drain my feelings for you. The door slammed shut with a bang, and the whole room fell into a deathly silence. I stood there for a long time, laughing at myself. James, how much feeling do you still have for me? How can you talk about draining it? In the past, I would have been so upset by his misunderstanding that I couldn't eat or sleep. Now, I quickly pulled myself together. Then I looked at the wedding details my mom sent over. Before logging out of Facebook, I casually clicked on the notification dot and saw that James, who never posts on Facebook, had updated his status. You're so good, of course, you should be married and kept by my side to feel at ease. The picture was a solo photo of Cynthia, along with their wedding invitation. In less than a minute, our mutual friend commented, "Bro, the bride was swapped out just like that, so fresh and lively?" Then, James's new post immediately disappeared. but soon reappeared on Cynthia's Facebook homepage. Then James called. If it were before, I would have already taken a screenshot and called him first to confront him. In any case, it wouldn't end without a fight. But this time I didn't even answer the call before it ended. Strangely, when I saw this message, I wasn't very upset, maybe I was numb. My first reaction was that their wedding date was actually the same as mine. What a coincidence. When James got home, I had already gone to bed early. He quietly opened the door and walked over to my bedside. "Summer, are you asleep? Why didn't you answer when I called?" I turned my back to him and replied casually, "I accidentally fell asleep and didn't hear it." James sighed with relief, bent down close to me, and reached out his hand to check my forehead temperature. "Still burning?" As he got closer, the sweet and cloying scent of women's perfume on him made me feel nauseous, almost gagging. I instinctively moved aside to avoid his touch. His hand froze in midair, full of surprise. Tentatively, he asked, "Summer, did you see something?" I buried myself completely under the blanket, my voice muffled. "No, I just feel sick with a cold and want to sleep." After sleeping through the night, I finally felt a bit better. Gathering my energy, I started packing my things, erasing my traces in this home little by little. I just realized that I bought a lot of little couple items, and at first, James used them with me. But I don't know when, those things were all thrown into the corner to gather dust by him. I packed all these useless things and threw them into the trash can. There is also a booklet filled with photos James and I took while traveling everywhere, postcards we collected together, tickets from when we were in a long-distance relationship, and letters he wrote to me. This booklet is full of memories of James and me over the years. However, ever since Cynthia appeared, no new photos have been added to the booklet. When James came back, I was just throwing this booklet into the fire. He rushed over like crazy and forcibly rescued the burning booklet from the fire. Ignoring the pain from his burned hands, he angrily questioned me, "Are you crazy? Don't you know how important this booklet is to us? Why would you burn it?" James rarely gets angry with me, and this was the first time he spoke to me so loudly. The concern in his eyes didn't seem fake, but it was also true that he was hiding from me that he was going to marry someone else. Not wanting to argue with him, I casually said, "The booklet got moldy and infested with bugs. I backed up everything inside, so we can just make a new one later." Hearing this, he finally let go of his anger. While helping her apply burn ointment, James stared at me and suddenly said, "Summer, I've noticed you haven't been in a good mood lately. Is work stressing you out? I booked a custom private trip for you. Go out and have some fun to relax." My hand paused while applying the ointment, and I looked up at him. "Just me alone? Aren't you coming?" James sighed and said regretfully, "I'm too busy with work and can't get away. How about I accompany you next time?" "But James, there won't be a next time for us." I lowered my head and continued with what I was doing. "It might be hard to get leave from the company." "You don't have to worry, I'll handle it for you." I insisted, "But I don't want to go." His tone was unyielding. "Be good, I've already booked it, there's no way to cancel." I said nothing, but a chill ran through my heart. I recalled half awake last night, hearing James on the phone with someone. I don't plan to tell her, as long as I can keep it from her for a while. To be safe, during the wedding period, I'll give her a travel itinerary to send her out for a trip. The person opposite sighed, "And then? Are you going to make her the third party?" James, upon hearing this, was silent for a long time, took a deep drag of his cigarette, and slowly exhaled. It felt as if a century had passed. Then he slowly said, "As for the future, we'll just have to take it one step at a time." My heart aches as if being twisted. I lie on the bed, letting tears blur my eyes, feeling like these 7 years have been a joke. "James, it seems I never truly understood you. If you no longer love me, why can't you say it directly, instead choosing to deceive? Are you afraid I'll cling to you? Is that why you chose to push me away like this during the wedding? It doesn't have to be so complicated. James, I will disappear from your world completely, just as you wish." I asked him, "When is the flight?" "In 2 days. I smiled. "All right, I'll go." Upon hearing this, James visibly relaxed and instinctively reached out to touch my head. I quietly dodged. He was momentarily stunned, then smiled and said, "Before you leave, let's have a meal together." I thought for a moment and finally nodded. Tomorrow happens to be the 7th anniversary of James and me being together. So let's say a proper goodbye, clear everything up, and let this relationship both begin and end on this day. The next day, I arrived early at the restaurant where I had arranged to meet James. He showed up as promised, but he was accompanied by Cynthia. Sister Summer, James, and I just happened to be nearby on business, so we came together. Hope we didn't disturb you? I shook my head, but felt regret in my heart. It seemed this final farewell meal could never be perfect after all. James ordered a table full of light dishes. Seeing this, Cynthia couldn't help but laugh and said, "James, the dishes you ordered are too bland. They probably don't suit Sister Summer's taste, right?" James said casually, "You're on your period, you can't eat spicy food." Saying this, he thoughtfully called over the waiter and had the cold drink in front of Cynthia taken away, replacing it with a cup of brown sugar ginger tea for her. Cynthia pouted, complaining unhappily that James was too controlling. James affectionately tapped her forehead and said, "If I didn't take care of you, and your stomach hurt later, you'd be the one crying." Cynthia stuck out her tongue, "It's not that exaggerated, you just care about me too much." The two of them flirted openly in front of me, as if no one else was around. I watched coldly, feeling completely calm without a single ripple in my heart. We were eating when suddenly someone shouted, "Fire!" The crowd immediately became chaotic, everyone scattering and running outside. I had just stood up when I saw a figure quickly flash past me. Then I saw James tightly holding Cynthia in his arms, not looking back as he rushed her outside. In a daze, I seemed to pass through a tunnel of time and space and saw the 18-year-old boy, in the same scene. At that time, the person he was desperately protecting in his arms was still me. Only after we reached a safe place did James come to his senses. He looked back at me standing not far away, his eyes full of astonishment. "I was too anxious just now, I didn't mean to." I smiled and interrupted him, "It's okay, I understand." Soon it was the day James had arranged for our trip. I had packed my luggage early. After repeatedly confirming that there was no trace of me left in this room, I grabbed my suitcase and left without looking back. Of course, I didn't go on the trip, but returned to my parents' home to wait for marriage. After all, my wedding day was approaching. Meanwhile, James was busy trying on wedding dresses with Cynthia and had no time to care about me. In the blink of an eye, the wedding day arrived, and I met my arranged marriage partner Henry for the first time. I have to say, my parents really have good taste. He is much more handsome than in the photos, flawless in both figure and appearance. The wedding procession was spectacular. I got into the car, and we drove forward in a grand parade. When we passed another car coming from the opposite direction, both sides tacitly stopped to let the brides exchange bouquets. The car window slowly rolled down, and inside the opposite car, James and I locked eyes. A huge storm instantly surged in his eyes, and with a trembling voice, he said in disbelief, "Summer, how could it be you?" James could hardly believe his eyes, his heart suddenly raced as he murmured to himself, "I must be mistaken. My Summer clearly went on a trip, so how could she be here? I must have missed her so much that I'm hallucinating." Cynthia was equally surprised, she looked at me in shock, unable to speak for a long time. Compared to their astonishment, I appeared much calmer, with no extra expression on my face. I handed over the bouquet. Cynthia seemed to wake from a dream, dazedly taking it, then handed hers to me. I smiled and said to her, "Wishing you happiness." The car windows closed, the car restarted, and the two convoys drove off in completely opposite directions. It was just like the relationship between James and me, destined to part ways. Just as the car was driving away, I seemed to hear a heart-wrenching scream. I instinctively turned to look in the direction of the sound. Henry, who was sitting next to me, suddenly reached out and covered my eyes. His somewhat aggrieved voice sounded in my ear, "Summer, since you agreed, you can't turn back now. Is it just my illusion?" Otherwise, why would I feel that he is aggrieved? Although we are getting married today, the two of us are actually no different from strangers. Such feelings of grievance really shouldn't appear between us. I must have been disturbed just now, causing this illusion. I moved Henry's hand away and solemnly explained, rest assured, I do have a basic sense of contract spirit. Since I agreed to the marriage alliance, I will definitely honor the agreement and not go back on it. Besides, James is not even worth me doing that. In another car, James felt increasingly anxious. Ignoring Cynthia's objections, he immediately called the airline to check my information, only to find out that I had not boarded the plane. His mind went blank in an instant, and with trembling hands, he called the travel agency again. Has the tour guide picked up Summer? After receiving a negative answer, he completely lost his mind. Summer, the bride in the car just now must have been Summer. Summer lied to me, she never went on the trip. Summer. He crazily rolled down the car window and shouted towards my car, but the only response was the exhaust fumes fading into the distance. Cynthia tried to comfort him, James, you must be mistaken, that woman just looks a lot like Summer. But James wouldn't listen at all. He was convinced that person was me, shouting orders for the driver to turn around and chase after my car. Turn around immediately, catch up with that wedding car just now. The driver had never seen such a situation before and hesitated, not acting immediately. Cynthia saw this and shouted to the driver, don't turn around, keep going forward. She leaned her whole body towards James, trying to comfort him, James, whether that person is Summer or not has nothing to do with us. Today is my wedding day, don't let these outsiders ruin my special day. If there's something to discuss, let's talk after we finish the wedding, okay? But James was not convinced, pushing her away forcefully, get lost. His eyes were bloodshot as he ordered the driver again, turn around immediately. James's face was dark and frightening, his gaze sharp as if ready to kill. Seeing this, the driver dared not hesitate any longer, immediately turned around, and accelerated forward. Seeing this, Cynthia was completely panicked. James, today is our wedding day, and the guests are still waiting. What are you trying to do? Can we go back? So many people are waiting. If you do this, it will waste time. What about both our parents? But James didn't listen at all, he had already lost his mind. Then we won't get married. Cynthia didn't expect him to say that and became anxious. No. James, you can't do this. You said you would take responsibility for me. If I don't marry you, I will die. James, you can't treat me like this. Cynthia cried bitterly, her tears streaming down like rain, but her desperate pleas and tears did not win even a trace of pity from James. He looked at her with extreme irritation and disgust. I'm responsible for you, so who is responsible for me? My girlfriend is about to marry someone else, I can't control anyone, I just want to find her back. James kept urging the driver to speed up, but Cynthia was urging the driver to turn around. In her anger, she even reached out to grab the steering wheel. James tried to stop her, and the three of them were in chaos inside the car. Sharp honking sounds rang out, followed by a loud crash. The wedding convoy soon arrived at the hotel. During a makeup touch-up break, I got my phone and turned it on, only to be flooded with countless messages. All from James. Summer, can you answer the phone? Summer, I was wrong, please come back. Don't marry someone else. I beg you, come back. I can't lose you. Countless missed calls, countless messages, and besides James, Cynthia actually sent me a message too. It was full of provocation. Summer, today is the day Cynthia and James get married. He deliberately kept you away because he was afraid you'd cause trouble. If you have any self-respect, break up with him on your own and stop entangling yourself. The one who is unloved is the third party. Do you think James hasn't broken up with you because he loves you? No, he just feels sorry for you. He hasn't loved you for a long time. You're getting older, and I'm younger, prettier, and full of energy. Being with me, he can feel the beauty and vitality of life, while you are just a dull, yellow-faced woman. He says he can't stand looking at you even once more. Looking at these provocative words, I just feel they are childish. It seems that the so-called love between Cynthia and James isn't that strong either. Otherwise, as the victor, she should be lofty and proud, not secretly sending these seemingly provocative but actually insecure messages. Actually, this isn't the first time Cynthia has provoked me. The last time she was so bluntly provocative was when I last brought food to James. James damaged his stomach early on due to entrepreneurship. Over the years, I have tried various ways to cook stomach-nourishing meals for him. After Cynthia became his secretary, she would also use the excuse of being busy with work and saving time to cook for James. When she did these things, she never avoided me, saying, "Sister, you and James are my great benefactors. I see James working so hard, and as his secretary, I also have the responsibility to take care of his daily life." James and I once unintentionally helped Cynthia, and she always mentioned that we were her benefactors. At first, I felt a bit uncomfortable, thinking that Cynthia's behavior was somewhat overstepping. But James appeared indifferent, saying he didn't think anything was wrong, and even advised me not to overthink it. "Don't think too much. She just wants to repay our kindness. The young girl has already done it, and I can't just reject her out of politeness. Besides, her cooking skills are far worse than yours. Summer, trust me, please don't overthink it, okay?" But his words did not comfort me. I still felt uneasy in my heart. James noticed it too. Immediately, in front of me, he called Cynthia into the office. He put his arm around my shoulder and said to Cynthia, "Cynthia, you don't need to specially bring me meals anymore. Just focus on your own work. For my 3 meals a day, Summer is enough." At that moment, Cynthia's eyes immediately reddened. She looked like a child who had done something wrong, trembling nervously, tears welling up in her eyes as if she was about to cry at any second. Bowing to me with a mixture of fear and respect, she apologized. "I'm sorry, Summer. I really did this just to thank James. If it made you misunderstand, then I apologize to you. Sister, I'm sorry. You can hit me or scold me, just please don't be angry with me because of James." Her attitude made me instinctively frown, feeling very uncomfortable. I expressed my thoughts to James. But he still argued with me, saying I was overthinking it. "Alright, I've already told Cynthia not to bring food anymore. Cheer up, Summer." With that one sentence, he shut down all the words I hadn't spoken. Later, everything returned to normal. Cynthia didn't do anything out of line again, and I gradually let down my guard, thinking maybe I had really overthought it before. Because of this, I felt guilty for misunderstanding Cynthia. To make up for this guilt, I often reminded James to take good care of Cynthia at work. Until I got sick in the middle and stopped delivering meals for a while. When I went to deliver meals again, Cynthia still greeted me warmly. But with just one glance, I saw the necklace hanging on her neck, the exact same one I have at home. It was a gift from James for our anniversary. I remember Cynthia even praised it, saying, "This necklace is really beautiful. Brother Jinhan has great taste. Sister is so lucky, unlike me, I probably won't have the chance to wear such a beautiful necklace in this lifetime." At that moment, I felt so disgusted. Seeing me staring straight at her neck, Cynthia smiled at me without a hint of guilt. "This necklace of yours?" She admitted boldly without changing her expression, "James gave this to me." At that time I had a quarrel with James, but he said it was a work award for Cynthia, and that I was overthinking. It was also then that when I went back to retrieve the bag I left in James's office, I saw the meal I brought thrown in the trash can. And Cynthia completely dropped the act in front of me for the first time. She looked at me mockingly, "Sis, I don't eat cilantro, so if you bring food again, please remember not to put cilantro in it." At that moment, I was struck like lightning. It turned out James had given the food I made to Cynthia. I don't know how I left, but that time James and I had the biggest fight since we got together. We had a cold war for a whole month, and in the end, I forgave him once again because of the feelings we had in the past. James was so good before that I was unwilling to believe he would betray our relationship. James and I were childhood sweethearts. I always thought we would be together forever and never imagined we would ever separate. During the summer vacation of the third year of junior high, my parents went to another city for work. To avoid affecting my studies, they didn't take me with them and left me in the local area. I was fostered at my aunt's house. My aunt has her own children, and she is often busy with work and not at home. Most of the time, it was just me and my cousins at home. To them, I was an intruder. My cousins disliked me and naturally didn't treat me well. At school, when my cousin once again teamed up with others to bully me and pushed me into the artificial lake, I stopped calling for help. No one would come anyway. I gave up struggling and let myself be submerged. After a while, I suddenly heard a splash. It was James who jumped into the lake and saved me. It was a cold and gloomy winter, yet I saw him shining brightly. He said, "Why didn't you make a sound when you were bullied? Call me Brother James, and I'll protect you. No one will dare to mess with you anymore." James kept his word, and after that, no one bullied me at school again. When I was pranked by my cousin and ate a cake mixed with nuts, causing a severe allergic reaction that nearly killed me, he appeared like a god to save me. When I was trapped in a fire and almost lost my life, he broke through the thick smoke, came against the flow, and carried me step by step out of danger. And he, too, was left with scars that would be hard to remove for a lifetime from that fire. At that time, I was so guilty and self-blaming that I kept crying. But he gently wiped away my tears and smiled indifferently. "It's okay, just a scar, it won't affect my handsomeness at all." My tears fell even harder. "Does it hurt?" Seeing me cry, he was anxious and helpless. "It doesn't hurt, not at all. Please don't cry, okay? I beg you, when you cry, it hurts me everywhere." Back then, he could rush into the fire without hesitation to save me. But now, he resolutely goes to save the person I love, and that person is no longer me. But later, the proud James's family suddenly encountered a tragedy, losing everything overnight and leaving behind a huge debt. He fell from the clouds to the mud. I stood on tiptoe and kissed away his tears. "You still have me, I will always be by your side." I resolutely chose to attend the same university as him and flew to the city where he was. We got our marriage certificate right after graduating from university. At that time, James loved me very much and treated me especially well. We were poor then, but very happy. We lived in a cramped partitioned rental room without even a window, carefully budgeting every day and finding ways to increase income and reduce expenses, hoping to pay off the debt as soon as possible. At that time, our only way to relax was to hold hands and stroll around, because it cost nothing, and even so, I still felt happy. As long as I can be with him, even if we just sit quietly doing nothing, I feel incredibly satisfied. Once, he was drunk, holding my hand tightly, his eyes smiling warmly. He took a necklace out of his pocket and carefully put it around my neck. "Wear this for now, when we have money later, I'll get you a better one." Later, we really did have money, and I got a better necklace. But my favorite is still that thin necklace from the beginning. Everyone says James treats me extremely well, so many people abandon their partners after achieving success. But James and I have been together for so many years, and our relationship is still very good. If it weren't for Cynthia, I probably would have thought the same. Maybe it's because I was always indulging in the beautiful past, unwilling to believe the fact that he had changed his heart. That's why I gave him chances, allowing him to hurt me again and again. Fortunately, now I am finally sober and have completely let go. The wedding soon began. I linked arms with my father and walked step by step onto the stage until I stopped in front of Henry. In front of all the guests, my father solemnly handed my hand over to him. Henry took out the ring, ready to put it on me. At that moment, a sudden commotion came from outside, and the tightly closed door was suddenly pushed open. Then, James, covered in blood, appeared before me. He dragged his injured leg, struggling step by step toward the stage where I was standing, leaving behind glaring bloodstains. All the guests were shocked by the sudden interruption. James ignored the security guard's obstruction and looked at me pleadingly. "Summer, don't get married, I beg you, will you come with me? This is the wedding of Henry and me, and all the guests are prominent figures." I don't want to become famous in this way, nor do I want to ruin this wedding that my parents have been looking forward to for a long time. I asked Henry to call the security guards, who directly escorted James out. This brief incident did not affect my wedding. After that, everything went smoothly until the last ceremony ended. After seeing off the guests, I looked at Henry and said, "Can you give me some time to deal with what just happened? I want to make things clear with him." Henry gave me enough trust and nodded without hesitation, "Go ahead, but be careful. If you can't handle it and need help, call me anytime. I'll be right here." For some reason, his expression gave me a great sense of security. James was placed in a room with security guards watching him. When they saw me arrive, he quickly said, "Please try to persuade him. He had a car accident and lost a lot of blood." We urged him to go to the hospital, but he refused no matter what. If this continues, he might lose too much blood and be in life-threatening danger. I nodded to the security guard, signaling that I understood. Pushing the door open, I saw James sitting there with a pale face, beads of sweat on his forehead, looking extremely painful. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up and he instantly broke into a smile. "Summer, you finally agreed to see me. Will you come home with me?" Seeing him like this, since I once loved him, I couldn't remain indifferent. "You're injured, go to the hospital first. We can talk about everything else later." But he stubbornly refused to go. "No, unless you agree to go home with me." I was a bit helpless. "James, we have already broken up, I am married now. Can you be a little more clear-headed?" "No. I don't agree. Who said we broke up? I never agreed." I sighed. "The moment you decided to marry Cynthia, we were already broken up, weren't we?" "James, I sent you a breakup message, and you didn't reply. Isn't that an acceptance?" James anxiously tried to explain to me, "I didn't see the message you sent." "Summer, if this is about me and Cynthia, I can explain. I didn't mean to hide it from you. I have no feelings for Cynthia. I just felt sorry for her. Her rural parents forced her to marry an idiot. I only agreed to a fake marriage with her to help her. Summer, believe me, there's really nothing between her and me. She was rescued by you and me from human traffickers, and I also financially supported her. He calls me brother, and I help her just because of these ties. From beginning to end, the only one I love is you. I find it so ridiculous. If what you say is true, that you only helped her, then why didn't you tell me the truth and instead lied to me? James, you keep saying you love me, but have you ever respected me?" He hurriedly said, "It's not like that, Summer. I admit that hiding it from you was my fault. But believe me, I did it for your own good. I was afraid you'd overthink it, afraid you'd get hurt again if you found out, and then cause trouble for me, so I kept it from you. By now, I can no longer tell which of his words are true and which are false. But no matter if they are true or false, it no longer matters, because I no longer care." I let out a long breath. "It doesn't matter anymore, James. We're over. You don't need to explain to me." As soon as he finished speaking, James stood up excitedly, but it triggered the injury on his leg, causing him to gasp sharply in pain, and large beads of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. He endured the pain, trying to hold me back. "Summer, I know I was wrong and I hurt your heart. After realizing the person in the car was you, you have no idea how scared I was of losing you. At that moment, it felt like the end of the world. Maybe it's heaven's punishment for me, causing me to have a car accident while turning back to chase after you. Summer, this is all my retribution. I really know I was wrong. I love you, Summer. Can we start over?" In my memory, James never seemed so humble in front of me as he is now. I was calm. "James, stop struggling. Admitting that you've changed your heart is not something to be ashamed of. I believe you truly loved me before, but the fact is you have changed your heart now." He anxiously interrupted me. "No, I still love you now, believe me, Summer." I smiled. "You say you love me, but you can't even remember my preferences. The food you buy for me is all what Cynthia likes. You say you love me, yet the gifts you give me are exactly the same as Cynthia's. You say you love me, but you can forget my birthday and our anniversaries. You say you love me, yet in the most dangerous moments, you abandoned me without hesitation and ran to someone else. James, so this is what you call love? If that's the case, then your love is far too cheap. He looked at my indifferent expression and suddenly panicked. Summer, I know I was wrong. Just now, while waiting for you outside, I finally understood what it feels like to wait for someone. I've made you wait many times before, I'm sorry. I know, I used to have so many shortcomings, and it's only right that you were angry. Summer, I just ask you to give me one more chance. I will change, I will become the lover you are satisfied with. His voice choked up. I will learn to cook for you, share the housework with you, I will pick you up and drop you off every day, I will never eat food made by others again, the things you like to eat, I will eat them with you. If you want to travel, no matter where, I will go with you. I will never forget your birthday again, never miss any of our anniversaries, and I won't abandon you just because of a phone call from someone else. I looked at him expressionlessly, saying nothing. He became even more anxious. My relationship with Cynthia was mishandled, I won't see her anymore. I will make her resign, and I will delete all her contact information. I sneered coldly, so you know what you did wrong. But you still treat me like that. To put it bluntly, you just don't care about me. Relying on my love for you, you assume that I won't do anything about how you treat me, so you act recklessly and even worse. No, I care about you, I love you, Summer / sorry, I didn't feel that. All I felt was your trampling and belittling. You are always there for Cynthia whenever she calls, caring for her attentively, that's what love is. His face turned pale. / I admit I was indeed lost. I thought my pity for her was love. But that was all an illusion. Knowing you were going to leave, I finally saw my own heart clearly. The one I love has always been you. Just the thought of losing you makes me feel like dying. I was stupid, not realizing my feelings for Cynthia and you sooner. Even when we argued, I deliberately used Cynthia to provoke you. I have no feelings for her at all. It was only her infinite admiration and dependence on me, and my pity for the weak, that made me lose my way. Summer, can we start over? No, I don't love you anymore. I said calmly, James, you don't deserve my love. I'm fine. I deserve a beautiful, untainted love, and a lover who focuses solely on me. After saying that, I turned and walked away. James dragged his heavily injured leg, stumbling as he caught up to me and grabbed me. His hands and legs were covered in blood, looking horrifying. I turned around, my voice cold and hard, stop playing the victim, it's useless. His body trembled slightly, his eyes full of despair, no, Summer. After saying that, I walked without hesitation to Henry. He smiled and reached out his hand to me. I let out a long breath, placed my hand in his, and he held my hand as we smiled at each other and left without looking back. Later, I heard that on the day of the wedding, there was a car accident. Cynthia was seriously injured and sent to the hospital but could not be saved. As for James, despite everyone's objections, he dragged his injured body to find me. Because he did not receive timely treatment, the seriously injured leg became severely necrotic and ultimately had to be amputated. Long after, Henry and I's child was already 2 years old. James kept telling everyone, "Where is my Summer? Who lost my Summer?" 18-year-old James, if you ever meet 28-year-old James, never forgive him.